Natasha, and if you're watching this video, welcome to my Chiron series. So I will be doing the intro of what is Chiron, and then for each individual sign for each video, as well as how it might be playing out within each of the 12 houses for that actual zodiac sign. So stay tuned, please subscribe and like this video or share it with someone that you may find that it may help them. So we all have Chiron in our chart. So what is Chiron? So Chiron is basically the wounded healer. In a nutshell, it is the area where we just feel inadequate in, we just suck at, we don't know why, and it is something that it will just keep coming up throughout our lifetime in some way, shape, or form. Usually it's stronger kind of earlier in life, and hopefully if you work on it and heal it over time, it will be a little bit lighter and not as impactful or awkward for you. And when you heal it, it is actually your superpower, and it is something that you are really good at in its own way, and it is something that you can help other people who struggle with in this area as well, if that made any sense. I am a Chiron in Gemini in the 9th house, so if you want to look at that video or in my past videos, I have a video on that and how that kind of plays out. So you'll often see me stumbling with words, because Gemini is learning, speaking, reading, writing, and learning, and so that seems to be a thing for me. So I'm sorry about that. It keeps coming up. But when I was really young, I was practically a mute and I did not speak at all. So you can see over the years that is, not the case, and I may be able to communicate things to you in a way that maybe other people may not be able to communicate with, or more patient when it comes to learning disabilities, speaking impediments, things like that. So hopefully you find this video informative in the way that I express it, if other videos are not necessarily hitting it for you. So Chiron is just basically that zodiac sign and where it is placing in whatever house it is for you, how it's acting out, or what area in life that Chiron placement is wounding you, or where you have been wounded early on in life and it's kind of affected you in whatever decisions you made, or fear-based mentalities, whatever, things that kind of led from one thing to another over time, if you've kept ignoring it and not addressing it, because it is scary and it's uncomfortable, it doesn't feel good. Sometimes you don't even know how to resolve it because like you're awkward at it. And so, knowing where your Chiron placement is and what sign it is can help you feel like, there's nothing wrong with you. This is just something that you were born with, that you came here to learn as a human being here on Earth School, and for your soul to kind of overcome and resolve in your own way. So this way you can help other people, because when we interact with other human beings on this planet, where we all go through human struggles, no matter what it looks like on the outside, you can bring this superpower, this quality that is very unique and personal to you, to help someone else and empathize with someone else, who's going through the same thing, or a friend whose child is going through something like that and they don't know what to do. You bring this special quality if you're able to heal it, and work on it. So that is basically what Chiron is. It was like a healing centaur, like a good centaur in Greek mythology, and this was a wound that this centaur was not able to heal, even though he was a healer and a teacher, you know, and sometimes, you know, you look at a teacher or a guru or someone who you see as above you, and if they can't figure it out, you know, or heal something or problem solve something, it's kind of like, oh, you know, even my teacher, you know, is flawed, you know, because, you know, regardless of if someone has like a title leadership role, who looks like they have it all, they are a human being and they have problems too. They are not perfect. They do not always have the answers. So, you know, be a little bit compassionate about other people because they have a Chiron placement just like you. And if we all kind of become more aware of our Chiron placement, because it is like a big factor in my what, you know, here we go, in my perspective, yeah. In my perspective, Chiron is a big one to try and focus on and heal. The next one is Saturn, and another one is your North Node, South Node. So please subscribe and check out those videos if I haven't posted them quite yet. You know, you have your big three, Sun, Moon, and Rising in astrology if you're new to astrology. And if you're digging deeper into it, you know, Chiron, Saturn, North Node, South Node. Those are three big ones that I would also dive into, as those three, the Chiron, Saturn, and North Node, South Node thing, are going to be big factors as to how you kind of grow and evolve as a soul, what you came here to do in this lifetime, what is very unique and authentic for you as a human being, you know, regardless of how society is structured or how whatever culture or place in the world you live in, how that is structured. This is more personalized to you. And if you've kind of helped figure that out, you'll kind of have more guidance, you know, as to where you're supposed to kind of go in life, you know. And it can kind of also make you feel heard, make you feel like there's nothing wrong with you. This is just something that you have to work on. You may reflect on childhood as to like connecting the dots of how these kind of struggles may have initiated. You know, like for me, I have Chiron and Gemini, and when I was growing up, the environment was pretty quiet, you know, and I'm a Libra rising, you know, and so I tended to, what I naturally went towards is kind of sensing, you know, I'm very intuitive. I kind of sense, engage the environment, the room. I read body language, facial expressions. When I hear someone say something, you know, I'm not just listening, I'm trying to hear them. And I also notice when I'm not heard because I say something, and based on the response someone gives me, I'm like, yeah, they didn't get what I was trying to say. And then I determine, you know, is it important enough or not to intervene, or it's like, yeah, it's like whatever, it's not important, so I'll just let it go. This is something that you can kind of work on and be just more compassionate and empathetic about other people in your scenario. And the more and more people who come to this realization, awareness, level of consciousness, as you know, there's more and more and more levels of consciousness and awareness, then, you know, you can help prevent hurting other people unintentionally. You know, yeah, because usually it's not intentional, hopefully, you know, but when you're more aware of yourself, number one, you can catch yourself when it's actually happening, or you're like, oh crap, you know, like I did it again, you know, and then you can try and work on it over time, you know, or recognize different things, you know, because if you're not aware of it, you're not going to fix it. You're just going to overlook it. You may realize that, you're just living on survival mode. You're just trying to feel loved and seen and appreciated so much to where you're kind of blinded by what you're actually doing, you know. So I think that's it for my little intro spiel, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so I will start with the series after this, and it'll be time stamped down below if you want to kind of skip things. So yeah, okay, see you in a bit. Okay, so Gemini, for Chiron and Gemini, I have this placement. So you basically have the wound of feeling heard or using your voice, or have had struggles with some sort of communication, learning, speaking, reading, writing, comprehension of all of those little textbook things that we grew up going to school with. You could have things like speech impediments, or just to have a hard time expressing yourself or expressing your emotions, expressing your thoughts, and the words just don't come out. You can have a wound of just being curious and not being curious like normal 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, you know, who ask questions every 2 minutes. You may have struggled doing that, and maybe your parents thought that there's something significantly wrong with you, because I know I got that. You can be kind of very, very shy or anxious in social situations, have a fear of being dumb or stupid, so you just don't do anything, or you don't express your thoughts and curiosity or questions because that super deep wound of feeling dumb or not knowing what to say or not knowing what to ask makes you just almost a mute, or you just can't get it out of you. When I was little, because your Chiron is almost like a reoccurring thing that just keeps kind of coming up, or coming up, you know, kind of coming up into your face, you know, throughout your lifetime. And hopefully when you work on it, it actually gets better or easier. And that's almost like a daily practice, or whenever you come into like that fearful situation that you don't want to speak, or makes you really, really anxious, it's almost like you have to do, what do you call it? Exposure therapy a little bit. You know, it's not like super duper traumatic, but it's very fearful and anxious of like actually having to practice something that is very intimidating and scary for you. And so that's like public speaking, social anxiety, just asking questions or feeling like you don't know the answer if someone asks you a question, and you're at an age now that you're doing something, and so you want to go hide in the back so no one bothers you. So that can all be expressions of this Chiron and Gemini energy. And it does not mean that you're dumb or stupid or in any other way, because it actually is your greatest superpower. And I'll put that in the next section that's time stamped and everything. But you have a fear of being judged, have a fear of expressing your thoughts, overthinking or overanalyzing things, or overanalyzing conversations and interpretations of how other people interpreted what you were trying to say, and maybe you will kind of ruminate on how you should have done it better, or, you know, they didn't understand you, you didn't feel heard, because this kind of thing of not feeling heard, or people listening but they didn't actually get what you were trying to say, might be something that happens a lot, or people don't give you enough time to process your thoughts or what to even think about, you know, because it just doesn't come naturally to you. And other people may become very impatient with you, or they just leave you, they don't have time for it, they're on a different speed in this kind of communicating, learning sector, you know, and so you don't kind of match, you know, you're kind of repelled away from each other. Not that you want other people, you want to connect, but some other people, when they don't have the same wound, you know, they meet you, maybe you're like dead silent. I was always like the quietest one at the lunch table. I've been called a mute. Sometimes people would ask, like, when I did talk to someone, I was very selective with who I would talk to, and someone would just come up, you know, be like, oh my God, this is the first time I've ever heard your voice. I forgot what I was going to say, but it's just this reoccurring theme of using your voice. Oh yeah, when I was little, I always felt like I had a curse on my throat. Like, I don't know why I can't get words out, or I'm not curious about things. Like, it's literally blank. People will think like, oh, there's a lot going on in there, which in a way, sure, but you know, when I'm alone or whatever, only when I'm mad, you know, there's going to be a lot of thoughts and frustrations. But when I'm at peace, it's really, there's nothing. It's just peace, quiet, and it's just observation. It was almost like there was a curse on my throat, and I don't know why. I can't use my throat and my voice. I would have these imaginative thoughts of like, I've always been kind of spiritual or believe in reincarnation because I'm half Thai, and I kind of grew up with Buddhist culture kind of in my kind of overall life. And I always had these imaginative thoughts, not like I had visions or anything, but it's almost like either a knowing, or it's just like I'm trying to create a solution or like a reason why I have this weird problem. And it's like I must have lived lives where I was so scared to use my voice and speak my truth because I'm going to get killed. You know, like if, you know, like in movies today, if you're a witch or whatever, or you did herbal medicine, you know, which is coming back up in today, using natural remedies to solve cures and stuff. Back then, you know, someone would be like, oh no, that's witchcraft, you know, and so you need to be killed because there's power and control plays. There's some leader who's being threatened that they're not going to lead the pack anymore. Someone is actually better than them or knows more than them. So they need to get rid of these people, you know, and so it is just a quiet learning, you know, that you cannot speak your truth or you need to hide. Otherwise, you're going to get killed and no one's going to believe you because they have manipulated and controlled the larger group. They use fear to say, like, if you don't listen to me, then bad things are going to happen to you. So they take the other side, you can say narcissistic side, of a person or leader, you know, who is so scared that they need to have overall dominance and control and will never listen or hear other people's point of view. And so I always felt like I have this freaking curse, you know, or if, you know, I grew up in a life where, you know, there was racism and it's like, it is a no-no that you do not interact with this race or this religion, whatever, who's extremely different from you. And if you do that, if you speak your truth that you're together or you're in love or whatever, you're going to be shamed, ostracized, exiled from the group, killed, beaten, whipped, whatever, you know. So I always had this kind of weird feeling like, why is it so hard for me to not speak? It's like I have curse on my throat and it won't come out because there's deep because Chiron is a deep wound, so deep. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to therapy for like 12 sessions and it should be good. No, this is like almost a lifelong thing that you kind of have to work on, and when you work on it, You're really, really good at it. It is your superpower, and I will now do that in the next section. But basically, Chiron is your voice, feeling heard, some kind of learning disability, speaking disability, or it's just really hard for you to learn things in the same way as other people in the past. I'm better at a kinesthetic learner or an experienced learner. Learning things from an actual textbook is not, it has never been the best way for me to actually comprehend information. You can always learn to study well, so you write things out like 1,000,000 times in order to get the spelling right or whatever, memorize vocabulary words or the order of the presidents and things like that. Or you can speak it out, use note cards, hear, auditory learning, you know, you have different kinds, or kinesthetic learning, like physical body. I learned through feeling things, you know, or seeing energies. I kind of see one person's point of view and the way they express it. I see how it's being taken. See, this is an example of the Chiron. Like sometimes the words do not always come out the way I would want it to. But then like when I see it, I can comprehend, empathize, and understand the problems that are going on between two people, you know, and then figure out, okay, like, hey, I understand what you are trying to say, and I understand what you are trying to say. Or, you know, if there's a big age gap, like a parent-child, the child is not receiving the information the way the parent wants to based on their behavior, which is going down a negative path, and they feel like they can't win, or they don't feel heard, they never, you know, so why bother fighting, you know? So they just keep quiet after conditioning over a certain amount of time, and now their mood is going to change that kid, you know, become very, very irritable, anxious, moody, or maybe completely depressed, and they go towards drugs, alcohol, all kinds of stuff. So I was going to talk more about this with the superpower stuff, but, you know, yeah, it's just like understanding communication, you know, and so that is a form of, you do not learn communication like that in a textbook, but people with Chiron in Gemini will have that kind of ability. So yeah, so now, because I'm trying to timestamp this stuff. So now I'm going to really go into the superpower of Chiron and Gemini people. And okay, so more of the superhero powers of Chiron and Gemini. If you have Chiron and Gemini, or you know someone who has it, so if you've worked on your Chiron, you haven't been hiding from it, running away from this wound and locking yourself up in a box, which I would totally have done if my life didn't kind of force me to move on the path that it did. And I go with the flow. I'm a Libra rising, so Pisces is in my 6th house. I tend to go with the flow of how I feel. And things kind of put me on a path where I slowly had to talk. And there were things that I wanted. And so in order to get overall what I wanted, I had to overcome this deep, deep fear of communicating with people and not being as anxious. And so that was kind of my exposure therapy, almost through jobs and careers. And I'm a Capricorn sun. That's why looking at your whole astrological chart and a review of your life, you know, you can kind of put the puzzle pieces together, and it's almost like you wanted this life and designed it in a way for it to kind of unravel in kind of a cool, beautiful way, even though sometimes it sucks a lot. So once Chiron is healed for you, you can actually become a master communicator in ways where many people can really deeply resonate with what you're actually saying. Because sometimes when we listen to TV or podcasts and things, maybe in the past, it's probably getting better now. We may not always truly get what the teacher, mentor, speaker, whoever it is trying to say, and you have to kind of collect a lot of information from various people. Hopefully, some people choose to only pick one or two, but if you're more broad and open and you're more receptive to various points of view, then you can kind of come to your own conclusions of what is right or wrong, or what is the best for you, or what has resonated for you, because not everyone has your life. There's going to be groups of people who have similar kind of life events with you, and some who are nowhere near it, and they have no comprehension of where you're coming from, and they have a really hard time reaching you. Like, they're so far away that their bandwidth doesn't come anywhere near you, but when you're kind of in a closer bandwidth, you can kind of do work with it a little bit, and then you grow from there. I don't know if that made any sense for you, but maybe it did. You can become a gifted teacher or mentor because you're able to teach people who don't know as much as you do in a way to where they can really comprehend and understand what is actually going on, because you become a master at communicating and seeing things that other people don't see and putting it into words, even though part of the Gemini thing is maybe the words don't really always come out. So it's kind of like you work with it, and some people, they heal it and maybe it's super fast, and people like me, I still have these little fumbles and stuff, but hopefully you get it. Chiron and Gemini people can be a very empathetic listener, so good counselors and therapists, because they're willing to actually hear you and not just like listen and come to their own conclusion of what the person is saying and kind of miss the boat, because I've encountered that quite a lot, where I'm speaking and trying to explain something, and based on the expression or the response, they didn't hear me, and then I try to explain it again in a better way so they can understand and hear me, or what I need, or what I need to do, or whatever, because they're trying to help. And still, once again, the receiving end is that they didn't actually hear me, and so, over time, Chiron and Gemini people probably learn to just be quiet and be alone, or they kind of give up because people are just not getting it, or they don't see what they're trying to say, or they're not getting it, it's not clicking. Okay, and then another one for like a superpower that Chiron and Gemini people may have is like they're a bridge builder. So I kind of tapped into this in the section before. I was starting to blur the just Chiron and Gemini with the superpowers of it. So if you skip that section, it's at the kind of end of that part. They're almost like a bridge builder, so they can take opposing people's views or viewpoints and kind of hear two sides. You can think of a Libra. I'm a Libra rising, so maybe that's just part of me, but Gemini is also a mutable air energy, and so they can blur things, like they're almost the communicator air sign of the Aquarius and the Libra. Libra is the cardinal air sign, and Aquarius is the fixed air sign. And then the Gemini is the one in between, who's like the little bumblebee, and they kind of go over here like, oh, let me talk to you. Oh, let me talk to you. Okay, I see, you know, maybe the Libra and Aquarius are talking and they're fighting. They can't see eye to eye because Libra is the go-getter. You know, it's like, hey, we need to start this. This is the new thing. Or like astrology is the new thing. It's upcoming. We need to get in it now. And fixed Aquarius is like, no, 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 no. That's not going to work. That's not the way things are done. No one's going to believe that. It's a bunch of foo-foo, hocus pocus. You know, like we can't change like that. And so they're butting heads. You know, they can't see eye to eye. They're both communication air signs, but the way that they approach things are just different. Aquarius is very stubborn. It's like, nope, what works, we need to keep doing what's working. And cardinal energy is more like, hey, let's try all these new things, whatever, let's keep moving. Let's not just stay in one place. So that Gemini energy, when you're healed as a Chiron Gemini placement, you can kind of sit back in the corner and almost like a kid, you know, like kids don't have that much power and authority over their parents usually, or they can't get their way, or they're just small in size. So that's another part of it, and they don't really get things, but they do at the same time. And you're watching mom and dad like fight, and you're just listening and hearing their argument, whatever it is, silly or serious. And the kid can now possibly, I'm not saying that all kids do this, but it's kind of like, okay, I hear and see mom's point of view, why this, that, or whatever, this, that, and the third. Juvenile kids like to say when I was interning them. And dad is this way because of his this, that, and the third, whatever excuses or reasonings as to why they want to fight for their way. And Chiron is the mutable air sign. Gemini is kind of like trying to blend the two, be friendly, charming, you know, like friendly and like, oh yeah, like I get what you're trying to say, and I get what you're trying to say. And so they can kind of express it in a way to neutralize both viewpoints, because they're not hearing one another. Libra energy can do this also, because it's the two scales, you know. So look at your own placements, but that is kind of like a gift that Chiron and Gemini can do, because if you're very shy or anxious, you have a hard time speaking and communicating, it's almost like the other senses become stronger. So visualization, observation, perception, analyzing situations based on observation becomes stronger. You know, like think if you're deaf, then you can read lips really well. Maybe that doesn't mean you have to, but it's just an example. Or if you're blind, your hearing is usually like a lot sharper, and you can hear like a pin needle drop on the floor when other people wouldn't even notice it. So it's just like a heightened thing that you are gifted at because of the opposite struggle that you grew up with. So that whatever that is for you, you know, try and work on it and tap into it. And maybe you have like a new gift that you can help a lot of people with. You can create your own business with that. It doesn't even exist because not many people have that gift, you know, because you're supposed to be pretty authentic and unique, and not everyone is going to learn resonate, communicate in the same exact way. And so people are gonna find you if you're really good at whatever it is that you do. Okay, and if they don't resonate with it, then you're not meant to be in each other's lives to help grow and evolve each other as a human being or a soul, whatever you want to interpret that as. Chiron in Gemini, once healed, can be an innovative thinker, or give different perspectives. I think I'm kind of giving that example to you in real life, especially if you're watching this video, because I'm a Chiron and Gemini person, and maybe you're not a Chiron and Gemini person, but you want to kind of understand who you are listening to, then share this with people, I guess, if I don't know if I'm helpful in any way. Chiron and Gemini once healed, you can provide healing words. You may be a gifted writer. I've written a book. I haven't published it yet, but it is based on things that I have gone through in life in like a very short way, and I think entertaining way. And when I write, it's because I'm mad. I'm frustrated, irritated, and so I have to get my frustrations out, usually with writing or poetry, because I don't actually get angry. So that's just how it comes out for me. Otherwise, I get sad and depressed. Those are my scope of feelings. They can be a master of duality. As I already kind of explained that, kind of giving balanced insights of whatever observations or learning styles, or maybe kind of how to teach and word things in a way that the person they're talking to can understand better, and being an innovative thinker of how to do that, because everyone will not always kind of click or comprehend something that is so foreign to them, or that they have not already heard or have not already read in a book. A lot of books that I've read on like self-growth and healing, it's like a good read, but it's not like, it's extremely rare where I read something like that where I'm like, oh wow, like that was very insightful. It's stuff that I already knew, and it's like, man, I could have been the one to write this book, but I didn't do it first, you know. Or these people know how to put things into words for certain stuff that I already know, but they are able to put it into words so well. You know, this is that Chiron and Gemini wound, but at the same time, maybe you already know it, but you can't express it very easily. So that's an example of how it can play out. And so if you have it in that version, maybe you're more gifted in writing or expressing it in a different way. So I'm more in a creative way, opposed to a more scientific, logical way, which I do use a lot of logic too. But yeah. So when you heal your Chiron wound, you're actually a voice that many people want to hear, possibly, or they really enjoy your communication style or how you word and express things, because it is some in a way where it's not like a put down or shaming, make you feel guilty, or interrogating, like a bully, because maybe you're able to put things into words where people are actually going to be receptive of what they're being spoken about, because a lot of times people don't want to hear things because it hurts, or they're afraid that they're not good enough, they're not going to be accepted, or they're going to be rejected. And so They may be listening to be polite, but they might not truly receive what is trying to be taught to them. So there may be a way that you express whatever you're trying to express in a way that more people will absorb that information and not feel like they're a weirdo or they're bad or they suck or they're stupid or they don't have it together, because literally everyone does not actually have it all together. So don't believe the foo-foo facade. Yeah. And so in the next section, I'm going to go through each house of how Gemini might be expressing itself as, and it's like an improv of how I do it, because you can look at literally the houses and what they represent, or sometimes there's like a little blend of what might be happening, and it's just an example if you're interested in looking at that. So that'll be in the next section. Okay, so Gemini, Chiron and Gemini through each of the houses. So still look at the Chiron definition overall. That's most likely how it's going to be expressed. But in each house is kind of where it's being, where the struggle is the most. And it's trying to teach you something, or trying to make you more aware of that area so you can heal it and give back, hopefully. So Chiron in the first house. So first house is our house of self, our physical body, self-expression. So Gemini here in your actual physical body, maybe there's something like speech deficiency, like you can't use your mouth properly, or like the use of your tongue, because in order to speak you have to, you know, pronunciate and move your lips, you know, in a way, and use the muscles in your face, and maybe the muscles in your face are kind of weak or underdeveloped. Maybe you have a stutter or something happened to your head. Aries is the head, the ram, and that created something else to where now it's harder to speak, or you stutter, something is going on there, you know. So that's kind of the blur of this Gemini Chiron in the house of Aries, of how it could play out. It could also be just like your personality. You may just feel wounded in just how you talk or how you express yourself. You may have a hard time with courage, speaking up, asserting yourself, being brave, advocating for yourself. You know, you are wounded within yourself. Chiron being in the first house, you are physically wounded in some way, or you don't know who you are. Maybe you have a hard time being curious with trying to figure out who you really are. Maybe you're always told who you are from others, or you just kind of sat back and assumed you are whoever you're surrounded by, and it's just scary to kind of confront and assert a different way and use your voice and speak up, or learn about who you are. Like maybe you feel like that's not even an option to learn who you authentically are, you know. So that's maybe something to consider if that applies to you, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Okay. Gemini in the second house. Second house is our Taurus house, self-esteem, self-worth, self-value, or what value really is, and our finances and material things that we own. So Gemini in the second house, you may have a hard time communicating what your worth is, or communicating your finance, like business deals, like maybe you know you produce or make very high quality work, whatever it is that you do, and it has a high value. You use the best products, or you spent like a million hours creating this program or something, but someone is like, I should only pay this much money, even though you spent 1 million hours creating this program for $0 because you really believe and put a lot of work and effort into this program. But someone wants to undervalue you because there's a lot of programs out there, and you should just compete with the other programs, and no one's buying your product because you just put too much effort into it. And so you may have a hard time speaking up for your actual value of the work that you do, and have a hard time vocalizing that. Or if you're with a group of people and they're controlling how to market a product, maybe you have a hard time communicating what you're trying to create in a group, or you know, like feeling heard in a group, and how to express your sense of self-worth and self-value and how you make money from that. That can be something if you have Chiron in the second. So if you have Chiron in general in the second, struggles with finances, overtime, struggles with self-worth, self-esteem, and then combine this communication thing, or it's related to, you know, how you learn stuff, which has kind of created this cataclysm of other issues that you keep feeling wounded from, because maybe you learned something in a wrong way or one-sided way, or you didn't learn how to do it properly, and so you kind of get cheated, misused and abused, undervalued kind of over time, until you kind of learn more, and you can speak up and feel more confident about what your real worth and value is, and be compensated fairly for that to improve, if that applies for you. Once again, if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Chiron in the third house, or Gemini in the third house. So Chiron, Gemini being in the same house as the actual sign, it's just, think, double whammy of that. Differences from the traditional Gemini stuff, it could be wounded in your siblings, or in some way they wound you, in whatever way that can play out. They take advantage of you, misuse you, they don't hear you, and then, or maybe speak for you, and that is not even true. Whatever, you know, there's a lot that can happen. So siblings or close friends, or the peers that you grew up with, can wound you, or maybe you were bullied in school, or kids made fun of you at school because it's your peers that you grew up with in elementary school, intermediate school, however your school system is set up, or if you're homeschooled, whatever. It can be also like your close cousins, maybe they kind of wound you in some way. Also, it is also the house of short distance travel, like car rides from home to school, or from city to city, as well as, you know, think of the small transportations, cars, bicycles, roller skating, skateboarding, things like that, walking. Maybe you were wounded in some sort of way, or there's some kind of miscommunication with how you transport, or, you know, like, oh, I need to be picked up from school at this time, and the other person mishears you or the date, and there's miscommunication due to transportation in some sort of way, or you thought you needed to take the bus number 1 to get over here, and you took the bus, you misunderstood however the route is supposed to be, and now you ended up somewhere else, you're lost, and now you have to spend more time, more bus money, to get somewhere else. So that miscommunication, feeling wounded in short distance travel, transportation, communication with probably time, small time management things of how to get from school, the dentist office, whatever. Organizing hobbies and schedules might be a thing also. So think about that and why, or how to better organize, do other things like not just communicate and tell someone the time, place, and date verbally, because people are also busy and they get confused, especially in our really fast-paced world. Text them if it's really, really important, like you don't have transportation, you need to make a court date, otherwise your little booty is gonna go to jail if you miss your court date. You better find an alternative or remind the person the day before if things have changed, and can you or can you not rely on this person. Do you need to save for an Uber? What are the alternative things that you can do to protect yourself if you know you have to be somewhere important? Those are some things that I've had to counsel people on. Okay. Gemini in the 4th house. So 4th house is our home, family, and childhood upbringing. So there's miscommunications in the home, or feeling wounded in from your actual family in some way, shape, or form. Feeling like your emotions are misunderstood, and family members kind of don't hear you, or it's just like emotions are miscommunicated, or you have a hard time with emotional intelligence, because the Cancer sign is emotions and Gemini is learning. So maybe wounded with misreading facial expressions, or misreading tones of voice, things like that. There's some kind of wound, whether the family is doing that to you and they're misreading you because they're in a trauma state or fight or flight state, and you're the innocent kid, and now you are being conditioned and wounded constantly, or you're going to have this trauma that you have to unlearn over time because of this kind of comprehension of emotions and kind of comprehension of family dynamics that are, it's just unhealthy, or you feel hurt by your family, hurt by your childhood wounds, and feeling unheard. You never had a voice, you couldn't speak up for yourself, or someone else always took over everything, and you feel like you got the short end of the stick. All kinds of things like that may happen. Okay. Gemini in the 5th house, or Chiron in Gemini in the 5th house. 5th house is our Leo house, house of self-expression, entertainment, fun, play, dating, casual drinking, casual sex, casual fun, casual play, icebreakers, those fun little lighthearted games that are not serious, you know. So communication, wounds regarding dating and relationships, how you express yourself in a creative way. You may had to have kind of learned different ways of how to express yourself, but you know, if you're really good at this one, you're very creative. You have a very entertaining way of communicating, probably because it's a entertainment house, and it's super fun, super playful, super lovable, and you can be really, really good at communicating in a fun, lighthearted way when you date people. You know, if you overcome whatever the wounds are, if it's like anxiety or not feeling like you're attractive enough or whatever like that, being able to vocalize and express it in that way. You could be really good with communicating with children, so you can hear and listen to children, because sometimes they don't speak very clearly. And a lot of times when I hear kids, I'm like, I have no idea what the kids say. But maybe you are super gifted at hearing what the kid is actually trying to say in their little mumbling, little cute little voices. So there's some kind of talent, or maybe you're really good at writing children's books, you know, something like that. Okay, so take that if it applies to you. Gemini in the 6th house. 6th house is our Virgo house of day-to-day routine, mundane, boring stuff. Did you brush your teeth? Go to the bathroom, wash your face. Is there enough gas in the car? You have to go to work. You have to go to school, whatever, you know, it's those things, daily tasks, lists, like, oh, I have to do all these little things that add up, and it eats up all the time, but it's nothing fun. So it's the plain Jane that all of us have to do. So there can be wounding and communication just on a daily basis, and it's the house of health. It could be physical health, mental well-being. Maybe you have struggles with mental health or anxiety on a day-to-day basis, or just speaking. If you do anything where you just have to communicate with people, you know, that is just kind of anxious for you, or you feel wounded on the day-to-day basis, or the combination of the two. Having just to speak is just really hard. Maybe you have some kind of health issue which makes it hard for you to speak and express yourself. So kind of take that if it applies. I'm seeing if there's anything else I can come up with. And it's also pets. Maybe you're telepathic with pets, or you can just, you understand what your pets want. Want and need. You're the cat whisperer or the dog whisperer. Gemini in the 7th house. So 7th house is our Libra house of relationships and contracts, business contracts, open enemies, just who we interact with on a one-on-one basis, and people who kind of mirror or reflect things to you that maybe you are not aware of and become aware of later on. So it's just communicating in relationships. Maybe you feel wounded by your relationships or misheard in your relationships, like they don't hear or understand you in your marriage or romantic relationship, or it could be like a parent, child. It's just any one-on-one relationship. You can have wounds from time to time with business contracts, or when you signed off on something, you didn't look at the fine print, fine detail, and you thought you did, and you still, something kind of comes up for you to learn about it, or a mistake. And so, you know, when you make big mistakes or big financial mistakes, usually the next time it happens, you will really check that over, because you've already been there and you don't want it again. So wounding, communication issues, or feeling unheard in relationships, or, you know, be careful of anything written in contract agreements when you have Chiron in the 7th house also. Gemini in the 8th house, or Chiron and Gemini in the 8th house, is the house of Scorpio. Scorpio house is house of power and control plays, transformation, deep transformation, our debts, inheritances, in-laws, joint resources, deep psychological secrets, the occult, things like that. Feeling wounded with your in-laws, or feeling wounded with your joint resources, or communication about joint resources. mishearing each other, or you're talking and you're actually not on the same page when you thought you were on the same page. Just misunderstandings in that department. If it's a transformation house, maybe you've significantly transformed your wound in Gemini, because it's just in this Scorpio house, and maybe you're really good at communicating in a very deep, transformative, powerful way. Maybe you're really good at communicating what you want when you're being pleasured by your spouse or boyfriend, whoever, girlfriend. So you can be really good at communicating in some way, or speaking to your partner in ways where it's like magic in their ear. And no one else can do something like that. You know, it's like a special gift that you have. Or like, you know, people who talk professionally on the phone, for people who are lonely, or, you know, all kinds of stuff that I'm not completely aware of, you know, like something like that. Yeah, I think that's it. Or like communicating very deep, dark truths that not many people are brave enough to speak upon, that may come off as taboo, or like, oh no, it's like it's too invasive, too much. But maybe you're able to be someone who can do that in a way where people feel like it's not too intrusive or too like intimidating, because Scorpio can be very intimidating or kind of like piercing. So maybe you have some kind of gift with how you communicate in that department. Chiron and Gemini in the 9th house. I have it in the 9th house. So 9th house is our Sagittarius house of higher learning, higher education, belief systems. It's mostly belief systems, philosophies, this big broad overview of how things kind of are, like the teacher, and how do you teach to the people who are trying to learn and trying to comprehend something that is kind of foreign or very advanced, or something that they just have a really hard time grasping because it's so big. It's not something dumbed down into a textbook or easily put into written words, because it's bigger than that. Or like energy reading. Like when I see people or dynamics and how they're just naturally interacting, I'm not intervening or anything. I just know things based on just being at that table, kind of problems and things that are going on that they might not even want to speak of, or they're having problems with and arguments with, and I see things within the two people that they both have to work on, you know, but it's not that easy. There's like a timing to it, because otherwise it would already be fine, you know. Not everyone is ready to hear what they're doing when they're trying to make someone else do something, or, you know, they don't see how they're being hurtful, you know, because they're trying to help. But you have to look back at yourself too. And it's more of an energy too. So that can be a gift for you. Or it's just like communicating bigger, larger philosophies, belief systems, or feeling wounded in religion growing up, or feeling like nothing really makes sense, or like all the religions, like they're okay. They're there, you kind of value them for what they are and their traditions, but it's almost like, you know, it's not quite there yet, or they're trying to, but you already know something more or something deeper, and that is just, they're just one interpretation of how they're trying to communicate it, but hopefully I'm trying to do it. I mean, It's just trying to communicate the belief system in a different way, which is not in the categories of religion. So you might feel wounded in religion or how they teach and speak things at the temple, church, synagogue, mosque, whatever. It might not completely resonate with you of how they're communicating that, and you might feel like there's something wrong with you, like maybe you're not like a spiritual or godly person, even though you're a good person, and that is not at all, you know, your intention. But there's like a communication style which is just not resonating with you. You don't feel heard from that group, and you know, you seek out things like this, like astrology, other unconventional ways of finding God or finding spirituality or finding that light within yourself and feeling more authentically connected to it. So it's that wound with religion, belief systems, political systems, school structures, of how school is organized and executed, and feeling like it doesn't really work for you. Because I felt that way. I can do really good in school, but I don't learn the best that way. I had to work really, really hard, spend a lot of money on schools and universities, and I feel like my return is not the value of the dollar that is spent, you know, so you feel wounded in that area. So that's kind of what Gemini or Chiron in the 9th house can be played out. Chiron and Gemini in the 10th house is the career house and public image. So you may find that you get wounded at work or career kind of often enough. Maybe there's a lot of miscommunication at work or career, or people misunderstand you, or you make a lot of just small little mistakes that can end up being very big mistakes depending on what you do for work. If you're in like investment finance, one little number can mess up the entire Excel spreadsheet. Or if you're doing some kind of chemical calculation or something, maybe you're really good and you know how to make a giant, I don't know, rocket ship, you know, and you have all this knowledge, but you may always make little boo-boos and mistakes with the calculations. Even though, so you're trying to create or make something, you keep working on it, but you have all of these little boo-boos when it comes to something in your career, or the public image, or, you know, like people may make fun like, this person is so smart, but they have like no common sense in this little area. They always make little silly, stupid mistakes, you know, or people visually see you as you have some kind of speaking situation going on. Maybe you're in the public eye in some way, or news anchor, or, you know, you speak publicly and they can just tell. The world and public sees you as you have some kind of speech stutter, something going on with your speech, slurring, something like that might be going on for you. And once again, if it does not apply, it doesn't apply. These are all like examples. Gemini, Chiron and Gemini in the 11th house. 11th house is our friendship house, networking and technology. So you may have wounds from actual technology, like maybe your face was glued to the iPad or computer, and that actually did something to you to where now you have a new problem that you have to live with and unlearn for the rest of your life, or did something to you where you're underdeveloped with speech, pronunciation, learning vocabulary. If a parent just stuck video games in front of your face because they were too busy, or they didn't really pay much attention to your educational development, now you're having to work on this consistently over time. If it was like a technology thing, That's just a scenario. It doesn't have to be like that. Where you feel wounded in friendships, friends tend to make fun of you. It's kind of similar a little bit to the third house, Gemini. Friendships and networking, there's a lot of miscommunications. They don't kind of understand you, or maybe you're just a foreigner and you have a heavy accent. And so if you move to a different country, you try to make friends and network in a new place, new culture, but you carry this very thick accent where a lot of them, like, they can't hear you, or they have a hard time learning from you. Maybe you're super smart and you have like a doctorate degree and you have a lot to teach, like the professor, who you have no idea what they're saying because their accent is so strong, and they're very educated, very smart, but you can't hear or learn anything that they're trying to say. So that can be like a networking. That can kind of flow into the ninth house thing also. But it's just this networking, communication, misunderstanding in that department. Okay. And then Gemini, last but not least, Gemini in the 12th house is our Pisces house. So communication, wounds, or just being wounded in the subconscious mind, our creativity, our dreams, imagination. So Chiron here, if you worked on it, you're probably very creative and very imaginative, very dreamy, mysterious. You probably could write a variety of books or poems, something creative, or what do you call it, like a movie, the writers for scripts and such things like that, because like dreams. But it might be hard to tap into Chiron in the 12th house because it's kind of subconscious or not awakened, unless maybe there's some transits that you have already gone through that kind of lit it up. Or it might still be kind of, what do you call it? It might be still asleep, because 12th house is sleepy. But that's not the word that I was looking for. But just communication, very, very hard for you to tap into because it's in this kind of subconscious part of you. And when it's subconscious, you just, you can't access it. It's in the subconscious when you fall asleep and you dream and you wake up, and not everyone remembers their dreams, or maybe you can speak really, really well in your dreams, or you're dreaming about being able to do all these things, but in real life, maybe it's really hard, or maybe it's reversed. Maybe you have fear, anxiety, and dreams of not being able to speak, having a lot of anxiety of being ridiculed for what you have to say in your dreams, but in real life it's fine. It can vary, but probably most likely very creative, very intuitive, with just knowing a lot of things, because Gemini is a knowledge house. So maybe you just know. You instinctively and intuitively just know. You don't know why, but you just know. And maybe it's really hard to express verbally what you do know on that intuitive level, or people don't want to hear it. They're not accepting of it because it's too woo-woo, are not accepted by the masses, or maybe not yet. And you're always wounded by other people because they don't believe in your kind of dreamy belief system that doesn't make sense to them. And so you feel wounded and misunderstood, misheard with your dreams or your intuitive knowing about stuff, and people think you're crazy. So just take that if it resonates, and if it doesn't, kind of use the combination of what you've learned from Gemini in the earlier portion in whatever house that it is playing out in. Or if you have kids, you know, if it helps you kind of get a better understanding of them, what their struggles are, so you can kind of work on those things slower, because it's an area that they are not naturally good at. This is a tool that you can kind of use to kind of tap into specific areas that they just need a little bit more help with. So that concludes my Chiron in Gemini video. Please subscribe, like this video, and subscribe so this way you can find me for future videos, and check out my playlist down below of the other series that I've done. They're organized down there if you like my style, and hope to see you next time. Okay, bye.